Okay. Good evening, everyone. Trust we are all fine. How's our day been? Okay. Let me hold on for some of us. Let me hold on for others to join. Okay. Good evening. Good evening, Bayo. Good evening, Praise. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Esther. Good evening. Good evening. Hope our day has been great. Hi, Fisim. Okay, let's give others some time to join. Can you see my screen? Okay. So let's give others some time to join. Okay, I know. I just um, unshared my screen. Oh, well, let's give others some time to join. And the next few minutes, okay. Okay, I should recap on last class. I will. I will. Please, guys, give me a minute. Please, give me some minutes. Good evening, Emily. Good evening, Latoyose. Good evening, Akinola. I'll get back to you guys very soon. Good evening, everyone. Please just give me some minutes. I'm coming. Okay, okay. Just give me some minutes, please. Let me quickly do it. Uh, I'm trying to upload it from. Oh, I guess I'm still live.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms. Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.
Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry for the delay. So sorry. Please, can you all see my screen now? Please, can you see my screen? Let me see you all can see my screen now. Okay, okay. So sorry for that delay. Sometimes these things, you just have to keep on trying. Uh, Thank you so much. Fair. Okay, okay. So let's quickly roll in. So there's no time to waste again. Okay. So I'm sorry that this is not very clear as it should be, but don't worry. So previously, last week we discussed about accessing. Who can remind me of what we discussed about? That's accessing AWS. Okay. So who can tell me what we discussed last week? Anybody? So let's just quickly rush into it. Who can tell me what we discussed last week? Anybody? Yes, AWS services. Mm, AWS services. That's accessing AWS. No, okay, yes. The last one we talked about, that's accessing AWS services. We said we have three ways of accessing AWS services, either through the AWS Management Console, the CLI, Command Line Interface, or the SDK, Software Development Kits. So because our time is fast spent, so accessing AWS through the management console. And my colleague, that's Ife, really helped us in understanding that particular section. So now we're talking about AWS shared responsibility. So before we proceed, I want to tell us, please feel free to throw your questions. You understand? Feel free to reach out to us, I guess, over the community if you have. That's Telegram. If you have one or two issues, just feel free. The cloud is very, very wide. Yes, it's very, very wide. So feel free, just throw your questions. If you've done your research, just feel free and come and drop your questions. And trust me, I and my wonderful colleague, we are always here to help you out. So So this is cloud computing class Oduayo. So let's dive in. AWS Shared Responsibility Model. So from the term shared responsibility model, so what comes to your mind when you hear, don't worry, I'm going to give you the slides. So what comes to your mind when you hear shared responsibility model? Now, this is one of the topic that they are going to be talking about that's going to come out in your exam rather. So as students, as future cloud engineers, those of us that are preparing for the AWS solutions, sorry, for the AWS Cloud Professional exam, it's good for us to understand this. This is key. This is very, very key for us to understand, please. So I'd like us to stay focused as we dive deep into this section. So, so we're talking about understanding security roles and responsibility. Understanding the security roles and responsibility. So, the AWS Shared Responsibility Model. Throughout this course, we had an overview of AWS resources in the cloud. If I remember when we spoke about core AWS services, how many of us remember that section where we pointed out the core AWS services, pointed out EC2, um, IAM, S3, and I told us we'll no longer be using their full names because it's a lot, sorry. EC2, IAM, S3, VPC, and RDS. So these are the core AWS services. These are the core AWS services. So please and please, let's focus on this. So I have a quick question to ask us. Now, the big question is this: who is responsible? Let's say, I said we are the customers, for example, and we have AWS, the service provider. Who is responsible for keeping these resources secure? Is it AWS or you, the customer? I want us to jump in the chat and tell me who is responsible for keeping these securities secured. Is it AWS or the customer? And the customer happen to, okay, okay, I see some people saying AWS, both of us. Okay, you mean AWS and the customer? Okay, the customer, okay, Olushola, VPC, Mohammed, okay, both of us, you and AWS, you and AWS. So think about it. We are diving deep into the shared responsibility. We want to know who who is responsible. Both parties, AWS. So I'm going to get about, if I can see, like three other one, both primarily, both, but primarily it's AWS. I need two more boats. Okay, I think I'm saying both. Boats and one more. Okay, it's a shared responsibility. Okay, so let's now the answer is both. You, the customer, and AWS. Now, it's very crucial that we know our own responsibility. AWS does not cover everything. We ourselves does not cover everything. So it is both, and it's good for us to know our own part, and AWS should know their own part too. Yes. So now the reason is that you do not treat your AWS environment as a single object. Rather, you treat the environment as a collection of parts that build up each other. AWS is responsible for some parts of your environment, and yes, it's both. And you, the customer, are responsible for other parts. This concept is known as shared responsibility. So please, I believe we are going to dive deep, and there I put some knowledge check for us to answer. Trust me, this particular section is going to come out in the exam for those of us that will be doing this cloud practitioner. This shared responsibility is going to come out in the exam. So please, I'd like us to really pay attention and send questions when the time arises. So the shared responsibility model divides into customer responsibility, also commonly referred to as security in the cloud, AWS responsibility, referred to as security of the cloud. Now, these are the two things we need to know. Security in the cloud is the customer's responsibility. I've told us before that everything we put in the cloud, it's our responsibility to secure it. Now, every aspect of the cloud, that's the cloud entirely, is AWS responsibility. So let's look at the customer responsibility. But before I dive deep into it, let's take, for example, a building now. Let's before we look at each section, let's take, for example, a building. Those of us that are living in a rented house, and those of us that our dad and our mom is a tenant, is a landlord. Let's just take, for example, now you uh, rent an apartment, you know, with some other tenants, and you are there. Now, imagine, God for batting, you don't pray for it. Imagine one side, oh, sorry, I will see how I can do that. I will speak to the studio to help me with it. Give me 1 minute. Let me quickly tell them. Okay, let me continue. So let's say, for example, you rent an apartment, the landlord gave you an apartment, and God for batting, good, thank you very much. So imagine, just think of this scenario. Let's use this analogy. So I believe it's better now. They've moved me away from the road. Debbie. Okay. So just imagine you rent an apartment now, and the apartment you rent, one side, God forbid bad thing, we don't pray for it. Oh. God forbid bad thing. One wall just suddenly collapse, one side. Brah. Now, who is going to take care of that? Is it you, the tenant, or your landlord? And you were not pounding yam, you were not doing um one or two things. You were not hitting nail on the wall, maybe trying to paste your picture on the wall. So let's say you rent an apartment now, and cover batting, the wall just falls down, one part of the wall. We don't pray for that. So who is going to take care of that? Or the is it you or the landlord? Who's going to take care of it? Is for sure it's the landlord. Oh. So the same thing with this too, is the landlord. But let's take another scenario. For example, let's say, for example, this was that are using iPhone. Ladies, we like taking selfie and the rest. You now left your iPhone and you quickly ran to go and buy something outside, and you forgot to lock the door. Call for the bathroom. You don't pray for it. On getting back, you notice someone has entered inside your house and somehow located your phone and moved it. So who is going to be the one to pay for that? Is it going to be the landlord, or you are going to be the one to pay for it? So I want to get an answer. The tenant, exactly. So yes. So the same thing with the AWS cloud, the same thing with the AWS shared responsibility. So it's good for you to know your own responsibility as a customer. Yes, the owner of the phone. It's not the landlord that owns the phone. So it's good for you to know your own responsibility as a customer. Is very key. So now, under the customer responsibility, remember the word security in the cloud, the customer. Security of the cloud, AWS. Security in the cloud, security of the cloud. Security in the cloud. I want to sound very well. Trust me, I had someone that just did the exam. I was doing about last month or thereabout. this question came out. Security in the cloud, the customer, security of the cloud, AWS. So let's dive deep into it. So we have, for example, the customer data can be anything. Maybe, for example, your picture they are bringing, maybe you want to store in an S3 bucket. Yes, it's a tenant. It's a tenant. Yes, yes, it's a tenant. So the customer data can be anything. It can be your files, your documents, whatever you are bringing into the cloud. Remember, is a rent, is a place you just rent some parts of the AWS services. I mean, sorry, of the hardware. We actually don't see them. We're actually going to dive deep into them as time goes on. But just know the customer data can be anything. It can be your videos, your pictures. So the other section we can have, we have the platform application, the identity and access management. How many of us remember when I explained identity and access management? So who can have access to your resources and who cannot have access to your resources? Okay. So I will come back to the questions. I'll come back to the questions. I'll come back to the questions. Don't worry. Just hold your questions and immediately I just get to the question section. Just bombard me with the questions. So you get, you can be writing it down. You can just write, type it. You understand? I'm waiting to press send. You can load it like you are loading something. And once we get to the question section, just press send. And trust me, that way I'm going to address it. So let's proceed. So the platform, the application, for example, the application can be anything, maybe your e-commerce website and the rest. So the operating system, how many of us know what an operating system is? You know, examples of operating system is Windows, which other one again? Linux, and the rest of them. So, network and firewall configuration, how you protect your resources in the cloud, how you protect your resources in the cloud. You understand who you allow to come in, the network and firewall configuration and everything. So, the other side is the client side data encryption, server side encryption, network traffic protection. So let me just quickly just do a little recap on just let me just do small explanation. So the client side data encryption is data at the client side, you encrypting it. On Thursday, we're going to dive deep into encryption. So encryption does the you hard coding your data. The server side is when it's, for example, think of the application side where the application you encrypting it, hard coding your server side, and also network traffic protection. You know, as the data pass through from the from your application, maybe to your customers or from your customers to your application. So customers are responsible for the security of everything they create and put in the AWS cloud. When using AWS services, oh, sorry, when using AWS services, you, the customer, maintain complete control over your content. It's very, very important. You maintain complete control over your content. You are responsible for managing security requirements for your content. Remember, just think going back to the building, for example, now, you have friends that can come into your house, those of us that are not married and those of us that are even married too. You have maybe let's say those of us that are not married, um you have friends that can come into your apartment. You understand? You will know those that you can allow into your apartment. So that's you managing your security requirements. So you understand? You giving access to whom access is to you, not just everybody. You get? So including which content you choose to store on AWS, which AWS services you use, and who has access to that content. You also control how access rights are granted, managed, and revoked. So let's go. The security steps that you take will depend on factors such as the services that you use, the complexity of your system and company's specific operational and security needs. So those of us very soon when we become cloud engineers, when we understand the company's requirements, we are going to know how to give access to some groups and how to give to some departments. For example, we can have the IT department in an organization. We can have the, let's see, the auditing department. So we know how we give access to all these departments. You know, so that's for the customer side. Let's look at the AWS side now. So for the AWS side, security of the cloud. So AWS is responsible of the security of the cloud. AWS operates, they manage and control the components, all layers of infrastructure. So remember, go back to the building again. Everything, think of the wires that are being run inside the walls for you to have light in your apartment. The landlord is responsible for everything. The same thing with the AWS cloud. So the hardware, think of hardware anytime we're talking about the AWS cloud. The hardware, the software, you understand? I told us initially we have the compute, the storage, the database, and the networking. Now, every service provider, all of them, the only difference between AWS and every other service provider is just the naming conventions. So it's the same compute, but then they had to change the name in order for them to be able to differentiate between AWS and Azure. So for compute, remember I said it's an EC2, for storage S3. Hope we get. So it is very, very important that we know AWS side of responsibility and your side of responsibility. So just think of the host operating system, the virtualization layer, and even the physical security of the data center. We are going to dive deep into all this little by little. So when we talk about physical security of the data centers, I told you there are data centers around the world where we actually just think of the bank now. Before you enter inside the bank, you meet those security guys, security guards at the front of the bank that they are most of them are not always smiling. So you get, so just think of the same way too. AWS has physical data centers too, and they have security guards that are actually watching it. So AWS is responsible for protecting the global infrastructure that runs all of the services offered in the AWS cloud. This infrastructure includes the AWS region, the AZs, and the edge locations. How many of us remember the AWS infrastructure, the AWS regions, AZs, and edge locations? So AWS are responsible for taking care of all those. So let's look at all this physical infrastructure that we're talking about. The physical security of data centers, hardware, software, infrastructure, and network infrastructure, and visualization infrastructure. Don't worry, one of the slides we are going to dive deep into the virtualization, network infrastructure. We're going to dive deep into it. But for now, let's just have it at the back of our mind because I don't want us to go deep into all this for now. So let's move further. Okay, yes. So the next part is question. But before we dive into the question section, let me quickly recap some important things to us. When you think of hardware, think of AWS. When you think of data, think of yourself as a customer. When we're talking about security of the cloud, think of AWS. When you're talking about security in the cloud, just use the analogy of a building. And trust me, you are good to go. So let me move to the question section. Today is actually not much, but then it depends on our question and our level of understanding. So let's see the next slide. Now, let's throw in our questions. So now we can throw your questions at me. So feel free to pop in your questions. If there are no questions, then I have a knowledge check for us. Shall I move on? It's like we all understand this. So ask your questions, ladies. Throw your questions in. I know the slides are not much, or would you like me to go over it again? Okay. No, you just drop your questions. Shall I go over it again? Okay, let me recap. So, understanding security roles and responsibility. When we're talking about AWS shared responsibility, we are generally talking about security. Yes. Now, this is one aspect of security. So we are saying who is to take responsibility of this? Is it me, the customer, or AWS? Okay, if it's both of us, then which aspect am I taking care of? And which aspect is AWS taking care of? Because if you go and leave your responsibility to AWS, trust me, AWS is not going to do it for you. And even as cloud engineers, it's good for us to know AWS responsibility and your own um, responsibility too. Because as time goes on, when we get employed, you understand, and we are being employed into an organization that wants to make use of the AWS cloud, we need to understand this shared responsibility to be able to implement them. Shall we get so? Now we talked about the core AWS services. Now there are thousands of AWS services. Okay, what is edge locations? I will touch that a little bit. Let me just do a little recap. So we spoke about the EC2, we spoke about IAM, we spoke about S3, we spoke about VPC, that's the networking aspect, and we spoke about RDS. So, like we said, who is responsible for keeping these resources secure? Is it you, the customer, or AWS? And majority of us understands now that it's both. Take, for example, the building that I use as an example. You having an apartment, a rented apartment. Mind you, if you are the landlord and maybe it's your dad that owns the house, you are the one that is going to cater for everything. Go about in one side of the wall is your dad that's going to cater for everything. But in this case, we're talking about you being a tenant. Sure, you get you being a tenant, and let's just say, for example, let's even take this scenario for example. Let's say even you being the tenant, and for example, those of us that like pounded yam, and the rest of them, and you're living upstairs, go for bad thing, you just start pounding yam, and for example, and go for bad thing, one side of the wall just crack. You are the one that is going to take responsibility of that. Yes. So in cases like that, you are the one that's going to take responsibility of that. But then, let's say you are not placing any picture on the wall, you are not pounding any pounded yam, we are not doing anything that could make the building collapse. And for example, just the side of the building just cracked. The landlord is going to be the one to take care of that. If you didn't keep your gadgets or you didn't lock your door before going out and a thief enters into the house, you are going to be responsible for any thing that gets stolen in your apartment. So it's the same thing with the AWS shared responsibility. So we spoke about um, responsibility. Shared responsibility is divided into the customer responsibility known as the security in the cloud, and AWS responsibility, commonly referred to as security of the cloud. So looking at the customer side, we talked about the customer data. Data can be anything you put in the cloud, your images. We spoke about the platform. The platform can be a Linux stack. The application can be anything. The identity and access management can who you give permissions to have access to your resources in the cloud. For example, if you've uploaded some pictures in your history bucket, which we are still going to be doing in our project, and you want some of your friends to see it, so you get, and you just share them a URL where they can access the S3 bucket. You choose which of your friends you want to have access to it. So that's for identity and access management. Now, the operating system can be either you want to use a Linux, Ubuntu, Windows, and the rest of them. Network and firewall configuration, how you protect these resources that you've hosted, or sorry, that you've actually launched in the cloud. You understand how you guard your EC2 instances. When we'll be talking about security groups, I'll be talking about what is it, NACOs too. You're going to see how we are going to configure all those. Those are firewall, how to protect your EC2 instances, and how to protect your subnet too. So also the customer side also talks about the client side data encryption, the server side encryption, and the network traffic protection. Somebody saying, what does AWS mean? AWS is Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services. So these are all the responsibilities of the customer. Okay, Debbie, that's fine. Just quickly go to the YouTube videos. Just click on that YouTube channel. Just click on it, and you see the past classes we've covered. So, security of the cloud, AWS responsibility. So, AWS operates, they manage, controls components at all layers of infrastructure, think hardware. You are not even seeing any hardware as a customer. AWS is in charge of every of the hardware. I don't think any of us will ever even see it. The highest I've seen is just in a picture of an example of an AWS data center. So think of that when you're talking about the AWS side of the this responsibility side of AWS, that's security of the cloud. And if we look down deep into this, we talk about the physical infrastructure, the physical security of the data centers, how they place security guards there, and the rest of them, the hardware and the software infrastructure, the network infrastructure, and the virtualization infrastructure. So I believe that's all for the class. By 8, we are going to be sharing the link for the attendance. So let's dive into the questions. So now we can share our questions now. Okay, let's quickly talk about edge locations now. I believe I placed it on the slide here where we saw edge locations coming. Yes, now I told us that in the previous class, regions For example, AWS, for example, in Nigeria, we can have different regions. In regions, we have AZs. In AZs, we have data centers. So a couple of data centers makes up an AZ. Couple of AZs makes up a region. Think of it like that. Now, for edge locations, now edge location, in a nutshell, is how you can customers can have quick access to data. Now, let me quickly talk about edge locations now. Edge locations are where the most frequently used data are being cached. That's are being cached. CACHE. So edge locations. So for example, and there's a service uh, in the AWS called CloudFront. So CloudFront is a content delivery network. So it helps you to cache your data. Now, let's say, for example, you have a customer. Let's say we are in Lagos, for example. We pick the solo side, and we have different places in Isolo, and there's a break here around there. You get it, and you don't want to always have to go to the bakery every time. So what happens is this: the owner of the bakery will allow people to come shops, those that are selling bread, to come and buy, and one way or the other, if one of the person that comes to purchase the bread or from the bakery is living not too far away from your site, you won't have any tendency to always go to the bakery to go and get your bread. So you can always have access to the bakery at your site there. Okay, 2 minutes to break. So you can always, so just think of edge locations as, for example, let me quickly just use this scenario. For example, if you type www.amazon.com for the first time, or www.jumia.com for the first time, it will take time. It will take like some seconds before you load. That's if you've not loaded for like some several days. Okay, I'm coming. Okay, let's take a break, and I'll come back and address that because questions have already started coming in. Let's take a break. Let's take a break.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super-powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.
Are we back? Okay, I can't see my slide. Okay, I'll be up soon. Okay. Hope we've all filled our attendance. Are we good to go? Can everybody see me? Should we proceed? Okay, okay. Okay, so let me quickly take the questions. I think we're talking about, okay, we're talking about edge locations. And we've gotten to the question section now. So some of us wanted to understand edge location. We're still going to cover edge location, but I'm going to give us a brief explanation of edge location. So let's say, for example, imagine you have a video streaming website hosted on AWS. So if a user in another country, let's say in Lagos, requests a video, the content can be delivered from the nearest edge location. You understand? In Nigeria. Or let's take, for example, hello, can we proceed? It's not clear. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Please, I want to know. Bibi Tayo. Okay. Okay. So let's say, for example, you have a video streaming website that is hosted on AWS. Now, let's say, for example, you have a user that requests a video, and the user is in, let's say, which location can I pick? Mm, let's take Nigeria, for example. Let's say the user is somewhere in Nigeria, let's say in Lagos. Yes. So between Lagos and between in Lagos, that's where the video content is. And let's say the user is in okay, let's take Lagos for example, and the website, the video streaming platform is in Lagos, and you have a user in Kaduna, for example. Now, between Abuja and let's say Ibadan, which one is closest to um, Kaduna? between Abuja? Who can tell me? Let's say, for example, you have your streaming website hosted on AWS, and the AWS and the streaming website is hosted on in a location in Lagos, for example, and your user is at Kaduna. So, and you have an edge location located, let's say in Abuja and somewhere in Ibadan. So, which one is closest to Kaduna? Yes, so Abuja is closest to Kaduna. So, what's going to happen is the data since the data in Abuja is closest to Kaduna, so that place is going to be the edge location. So, what happens is the customer is being routed to Abuja. The customer is being routed to Abuja. So think of it, edge locations, and whenever the customer wants to, you understand, have access to that data again, the data will be cached at Abuja for the customer. So the customer can always have access to that data. The customer at Kaduna does not need to always be coming down to Lagos every time. Hope we get the edge location. So let's proceed. Yes, Abuja. Let's proceed to the next question. Um, yes. So let's proceed to the next question. Question two. If the customer neglects an aspect of security and something happens to the data, can AWS help resolve issues arising from that? Now, you see, this very question, it takes for someone who is an expert to actually look into this. Now, AWS can, there's a limit to what AWS can help you to do. And it's very, very good for you to understand. Hmm? Security of the cloud is AWS. Security in the cloud is you. So if, for example, you have an issue, and let's say the issue is related to a failure to AWS, AWS will bear it and they will resolve it. So maybe, for example, you now have one or two issues. If there's something called AWS support plan, AWS support plans, where you can actually relate all these messages, where you can actually relate this question to them, and they can help you, but they can't really help you in some aspect. Let's say there's some security aspects they can help you with. Maybe, for example, you one way or the other you're unable to place a firewall, correct, a proper firewall around your EC2 instance, and all of a sudden you had an attack, you understand, on your EC2 instance. Okay, you had an attack on your EC2 instance, and you want to quickly, you don't really know how to go about it. You can quickly request for an AWS support plan and just have a chat with them. And I'm going to show us very soon. We are going to show us how we can actually do that. And AWS can help you with that. But let's say one or two things have been stolen from it already. Maybe one or two of your pictures have been stolen from it or thereabout. AWS cannot help you with that. So that is why you need to understand your own responsibility, that you are in charge of the responsibility in the cloud. Anything you bring and put inside the cloud. So that is why, you see, this is why we are here. This is why we are learning about the AWS cloud. So we can help companies, we can help an organization that wants to use this um, platform, that wants to use AWS. So we see that now. So it's very, very good for us to understand how to go about this. And when we start diving deep into these AWS services, we are going to see how we can go about all this. So for the next question, what is compute? When you think of compute, think of server. When you think of compute, just think of server. Like from the onset, I was explaining to us the difference. Okay, a compute is actually a server. It's as simple as that. It's what powers your laptop. Think of it as an engine. In fact, let me even tell us every services, every AWS services, this is on a higher level now, is there's a compute that is powering all the AWS services. So my colleague can bear witness to this on a higher level. So even all the AI and the rest of them, there's an engine powering it. So think of server. When you think of compute, think of server. Compute processes data. So we get so I don't want to go deep into it. So that's just the best way I can explain. So the other question is let me see, can AWS resources and AWS services be used interchangeably? Now, the answer is a capital no. Yes. Like I remember I made it clear that services is different from resources. Services is different from resources. Yes. An example of AWS service is Amazon S3, a storage. Yes, that's the question I'm answering now. So, an example of a service in AWS is a storage. Let's take S3 for example now. When you want to store something in S3, you don't store it in S3. Think of S3 as an hardware. Or don't even let me go that way. Just think of S3 as an hardware. If you want to store something inside S3, there's a resources called S3 bucket. There's a resources called bucket where you are going to store. So they can't be used interchangeably. Resources are what we make use of. Yes, resources are what we make use of. Looking at the aspect of, let me see, I'm trying to look for something simple that I can use. Yes, that's what I'm explaining. Resources, a resource and a service. Let me quickly go back to, let me see. Let me pick an EC2. An EC2 is a service. Elastic Compute Cloud is a service, an AWS service. An EC2 has a resource called instance. We make use of EC2 instance. The service itself is the EC2. That is what we generally make use of. Do we understand the two differences between resources and services now? Hmm? Or do you still want more explanation? Anybody? So I'd say as time goes on, once we start launching these things and we start doing hands-on, don't worry, we are going to understand. We are going to understand much better. Yes, yes, that's what I'm explaining. So yes, like the S3 bucket is a resource. The S3 itself is a service. S3 is a service. Inside the S3, we have resources called buckets. That's where we store our data and the rest of them. Okay, more explanation. More explanation. Okay. Okay, let me see. Now, let me dive deep into this now a little bit. Now, think of an EC2 instance as a virtual server. You launch it using EC2 service. So also think of an S3 as a service. If you want to store something, you can't store it inside, you store it inside an S3 bucket. That's the resources. That's what you make use of. Uh, an S3, you think of an EC2 instance, an EC2, sorry, I don't want to place instance. EC2 itself in general is a service, an AWS service. EC2 instance is what you, as a customer, yeah, that you launch or you make use of, that you host your application inside. There's something also called, there's a service called AWS Lambda. Now, Lambda is also an AWS service, a serverless server. Now, don't let me go deep into that. Just think of it as a serverless server. So the code you deploy, you trigger something called a Lambda function. So think of the Lambda function now as a resource inside AWS Lambda. Yes, individual services have its own resource. Every um, services has its own resources. S3 is not X-ray. X-ray is a service that helps you debug. So I guess someone X is a service that helps you debug is service. Okay, more explanation. Since what aspect do you not understand? And I know why is a bit hard difficult for us is because we've not actually done hands-on. Let me see how we can. How can I explain it in a better way that we can understand? Which analogy can I use? Let me see. Um, mm, which analogy can I use now? Okay, let's say for example now you want to open an account in the bank. Ah, when you get the bank itself is the service. The account you open is the resources. Do we get it? Hmm? The bank is the service. The account you open, hmm, is the resource. So are we satisfied? I will have just quickly pulled up. I will have just quickly used log into my AWS console and show us all this. Are we good to go? Who asked that question again? Blessing. Blessing, are you good to go? S3 is a service. S3 is a service. Now, if you want to store something inside S3, you make use of a resource called bucket. Is a resources is inside service. Resources is inside service. Resources are inside the services. Resources are inside the services. The services are like the mothers. So S3, so once you hear of S3, S3 is an AWS service. Now, if you now want to make use of that S3, you need to make use of a resource called the bucket. That is where you store, or that is what you make use of. You launch an S3 bucket. You launch an instance in an EC2 instance in an EC2. Okay, Charity, what I said, do you not understand? Hmm? Hmm? Okay, those asking about S3 and EC2. See, I understand. Okay, don't want to happen like he doesn't know what to say. Okay. See, the thing there is, you know what's going to happen? Go through the previous lessons, the previous class. Go to the previous class. You will see when I started talking about core AWS services. Yes, I gave a deep explanation there for those of us that have been following. For those of us that have been following, for those of us that have been following. So I made I came up with this. I remember when I started talking, I made mention of the differences. I purposely pulled it up because this is where we're going to be having confusion. I remember, was it the first class I took? I made us understand very well that there's difference between AWS services and resources. How many of us can remember? Yes. So let's go back to that. So we won't waste time, please. Go back to that to go and look for. If I continue using um, all this analogy, that it does even make me weary out too. So let me quickly look for the next question, because I want us to have um, so can we use AWS? Like I said, we can't use them interchangeably. It's not like I just explained. We can't use them interchangeably. So the next question now. Um, Sorry, I'm trying to get my. Sorry. Okay. So the next question. No, I still want us to answer. Okay, please explain client-side encryption, server-side encryption, and network traffic um, protection. Okay. So let's say client-side, that's you. You encrypt your data before sending it into the cloud or a server. Are we getting it? So what is server? The server is, for example, let's say the cloud provider like AWS. AWS encrypts your data as soon as it arrives on their servers. So there's something we call um, encryption in transit. So protecting the data while it is traveling between your device to the server. That's network protection. Let me just quickly make things easy. So let me just quickly make things easy like that. So let's move to the next section. So please go back to the previous video. So let's look at this question. Let's quickly take this knowledge check. I quickly pulled this out from AWS so we can have a deep understanding of this. Because trust me, this question, is going to come out. So let's pick two. Which tasks are the responsibilities of customers? That's you now. So please select two. So we are going to get questions like this: multiple options, single options, and the rest of them. So quickly, can we come in with our answer? Yes, please. Just go back to the videos and you understand. So let's come with the answer. No, it's not just D. You have to select two. You have to select two options. Which tax? Can we see my screen clearly? Which tax are the responsibilities of customers? So please look into it very well. And maybe on Thursday or before the exam, I will teach us how to answer these questions. There are ways to go about it. Okay. Some people are saying BD, 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 ARD, AD. Trust me, these an AWS question that's going to come out. So just take your time. And for every question, you have 1 minute to answer. You have 1 minute to answer. BD, C and D, BD. Okay. I want to give us 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Okay. Okay, just send in your question. Okay. AD, BD. I say everybody. No, no, you can't pick three. Oh. Somebody saying BDA. BDA. No, it's two. You have to select two. So is that all? Okay, everybody seems to pick D. I believe everybody already understand D. So let me wait for some couple of persons more. Okay, let's check the answer. So the correct response are patching software on EC2 instances. You see here EC2 instances, EC2 instances, not just EC2. So those of us that said BD, we are correct. BD, Ayola, um, Kalejaye, and the rest of us, BD praise. You see, my slide is not clear enough. So sorry about that. So the correct options are this. So this is the customer's responsibility. Patching software on Amazon EC2 instances. Remember the resources? Yes. And setting permissions for Amazon S3 buckets. Okay, I should explain patching. Okay, let's say for example, let's take operating system like Ubuntu Linux or Windows Server. Let me quickly so you as a customer are responsible for ensuring that this Ubuntu instance is up to date. So think of the security patches, the kernel updates, and the software uh, package updates. So there's let's say if you want to regularly check for available updates using commands like sudo apt update. So that's you generally trying to patch the access to the Ubuntu or the Linux, the Ubuntu server. So these are the regular update. This is called patching software on EC2 instance. Is that clear enough? Hmm? So let's say you're running a web server like Apache or a database like MySQL on the S3 instance. So you are responsible for patching and updating these applications. Do you get? So you are responsible for patching. So if you want to install maybe a package manager command, something like sudo apt get install and things like that for upgrading. Okay, explain the D option. The D option, remember I told you, let's say you've already stored things inside. You create S3 bucket to store things inside, like a video, your pictures, and the rest of them. Now, setting permissions for that, who you grant access to what is inside your bucket or what you've stored inside your S3 bucket is called setting permissions, giving access to whom access is needed. You understand? There's something called less privileged access. You don't. It's not everybody you give access to. For example, let's say you have a phone and you have a very. Let's say you're for those of us that maybe we have a sister thereabouts, and you guys can always be gisting. You can have allow your sister to have access to your phone, your password, and just to check one or two things. But some of us, we can't allow our mom to have access to it, or even our dad. So that's you setting permissions for this case now for your S3 objects, the things that are inside your S3 bucket, your data, your pictures, and the rest of them. So let's quickly, I will see how we can get these slides. Now, this other aspect too, I don't know where can we put this picture so we can see this. C. Somebody saying that she explained C. Or C. Now, implementing physical security controls at the data center. Just think of the bank. Um, at every bank you meet physical guards there. Exactly. Okay, so just think so implementing physical security controls. So think of the bank, for example. When you get to the bank, I said this earlier, when you get to the bank, you're going to see security guards at the bank there. So you understand. The same thing with data centers, there are security guards there. These are physical security, physical, something that you can see with your bare eyes. Do you understand? We are going to get the slide across to us. So I believe that's explained. So I don't know. Please can you let me see. I'm coming. Okay, yes. So let's quickly look at this now. Don't worry, the resources will be given to us now. So review of shared responsibility model. So I just quickly pull this up so we can have a deeper understanding of this. So let's quickly look at this now. So you see some ones that are painted that has blue color, and you see some ones that has kind of a pink color. So those are the AWS responsibilities. The other ones in blue are the customer's responsibilities. Now, this right here for the shared responsibility, if you know this, If you come across any question, if you come across any question related to shared responsibility model, trust me, you are good to go. So knowing this, customer side, configuring security groups. I know we've not talked about this, but I just want us to have this. So you understand? So I'm going to see how this slide is going to be get across to us. Don't worry, all the slides is going to we are going to get the slides. So configuring security groups. I'm not going to explain each and every one of them because of our time. Just think of security groups, protecting your EC2 instances. Number two, maintaining network infrastructure. You see infrastructure. Think infrastructure, think AWS. Implementing physical, you see the word physical, security control at data centers. Think AWS, patching software on EC2 instances. I explained that earlier. You understand? Patching software on EC2 instance, the updates, sudo yum update, sudo yum install, and the rest of them. Five, maintaining servers that run on EC2 instances. Don't worry, we are going to get up. We are going to, I believe studio, they are going to help us with that. So the last one is setting permissions for Amazon S3 buckets, S3 objects. Sorry, no, I'm always mixing them. S3 objects, F2 buckets. So objects, think of the things that your data and the rest of them that you store inside an S3 bucket. So those are the objects. So that will be all. Yes, we are going to be getting the slides. That will be all for now. So, is there any other question? And those of us that were asking between resources and AWS services, just go to the previous slide. And if you are still not clear, because we'll be having class tomorrow, just reach us on the community platform that's on Telegram. And trust me, we are going to answer you. We are going to answer you. So I believe we are good to do. Now, these things are step by step. Trust me. And I know we need something to fall back on. So the slides will be given to us. I guess when we move to our LMS, or maybe it will be shared to us on the Telegram. Don't worry, we'll be able to fall back on these things just to help us to further help us in our studies. Okay. Thank you everyone for today. Truly appreciate your time. Scroll up in the comment section and say my screen is not clear. Wow. So sorry about that. So sorry about that, Esther. Screen is not clear. Don't worry, I'll work on before sending the slide, I'll work on it. I'll see how I can make it bold. So thank you so much, everyone. The cloud is wide and it takes time to understand things. And trust me, this is why you have to have joined us from the very beginning. But it's fine if for some reason um, you have not been able to join due to one thing or the other. Just go back to the previous videos there on the YouTube channel. And trust me, we are you'll be move is that maybe it's your network. Okay. So I believe every other person could see my slide clearly. I want to know It is clear. Okay. 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 We already have some thriving texts here. Virtually everybody that they already giving the answers. Okay. So check your resolution settings. Okay, thank you so much, ladies. I truly appreciate the time. Let's call it a day.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite apps work their magic without slowing down your phones? Or how do businesses store massive amounts of data without filling up the entire room? The answer is in the cloud. Hi, my name is Yesterday. Imagine renting computer power, storage, and software from the internet instead of buying and maintaining your hardware. That's cloud computing. It's like having a super-powered computer at your fingertips whenever you need it. Why is cloud computing such a big deal? Well, it's like having a genie in a bottle. You get to focus on your business while the cloud handles the tech stuff. Plus, it saves you money, improves flexibility, and scales with your need. The cloud is growing faster than a fluffy cloud, and that means amazing career opportunities from cloud architects and engineers to security experts and data analysts. The cloud world is buzzing with possibilities. Ready to dive into the cloud? Our course will take you on an exciting journey. You will learn about different cloud models, how to design and deploy cloud applications, and master essential cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Are you ready to unlock the power of the cloud? Join our course and become a cloud expert. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.